Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We shall just wait 1 or 2 minutes until a few more people join, inshallah, and then we shall get the session started, inshallah. So I can see Sir Humaira and just Samiha on, mashallah. Let's give it a minute or two. Okay, looks like we've got a few people in here, so let's get started. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So my name is, if you don't already know, my name is Malla Musa, and I am actually the founder of Ilm Seeker Academy. Just to give you a brief history about the academy, the main goal to start the academy was so that we can try and reach out to areas in the UK that don't really have access to any Islamic foundation, any Islamic education, and it's also from a madrasa perspective, and also it was to target those parents who struggle to drop off their children to the madrasa setting. Alhamdulillah, from that, we've managed to organize online courses. So one online course that we currently have is the tafsir of Surah Yusuf, alhamdulillah. And I think I just felt as though it was necessary to deliver some sessions around Tajweed, and explaining what Tajweed is, why we do it, and inshallah today I will cover Surah Fatiha and go over each ayat, and we'll see how we can try and further enhance our own learning. Okay, so the first question is what is Tajweed? Okay, so linguistically, Tajweed means to read, to perform something very well, to perform something with proficiency. And the actual meaning, in simple terms, of the word Tajweed means to beautify. Okay, so it comes in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, and recite the Quran slowly and distinctly. So based on this ayat in the Quran, it's we have to try and make sure that we try and beautify the Quran, and just even if a non-Muslim was to listen to the Quran, and you'd want them to try and be sort of attracted to the Quran, and the only way you're going to get them to attract them to the Quran is by praying the Quran with proficiency, praying it beautifully, the way that it should be. Okay, and just to explain a few more reasons as to why Tajweed is really important. So it's really important to recite correctly with the Tajweed rules, just because we don't want to change the meaning of the Quran. A very simple example is the word qalb and the word qalb. Okay, so the word qalb with a qaf means heart, and the word qalb means dog. Okay, so imagine you were to mix up these words together in the Quran, then you don't want to be getting sin for trying to change the meaning of the Quran. Okay, so that's just a bit of background around why we pray Tajweed, and why we recite the Quran with Tajweed. So actually understanding it logistically, how we need to apply Tajweed to the Quran. So there's a few different things before we start. So the first thing is to make sure that we pronounce each letter correctly. So this, you might have already heard of it, is when we recite the letters with the correct makhraj or makharij. So what makhraj means is the place of origin, so where the letter comes from the mouth. So for example, if it's a throat letter, then it comes from the throat, a letter like ayn or ha, or if it's like a meme or a ba, that those letters come when the lips meet. So it's understanding that. Alongside that, it's understanding different rules. So rules like nun sukun ikhfa, and praying from the nose, and doing ghunna. And the third thing is to ensure that we recite the Quran fluently and as accurately as possible. So once we've combined everything together, inshallah, then we'll be able to enhance our recitation of the Quran. Okay, so hopefully in the last 10 days, starting from today, inshallah, we'll cover Ta'awudh, Tasmiyah, so A'udhu Billah, Bismillah, and alongside Surah Fatiha and the last 10 surahs. So inshallah today we'll cover how to recite Ta'awudh and Tasmiyah and Surah Fatiha. Okay, so the way that I'm going to do is I'm just going to recite the verses and then try to break it down. Okay, so أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So when reciting ta'awudh, so it's called ta'awudh, أعوذ بالله, the first thing is to make sure that we differentiate the difference between a hamza or alif and an ayn. So it's u, okay? Now it's very common for people to say a'u or a'u, or try and mix and match. So we have to make sure that we're reciting the letters from the correct place. So the throat letters, there's 6 throat letters. So it's Hamza Ha, Ain Ha, Ghain Kha. So Hamza Ha is at the bottom of the throat. Ain Ha comes from the middle of the throat. And Ghain Kha comes from the top of the throat. Okay? So Hamza Ha, Ain, Ha, Ghain, Kha are the throat letters. So as you can see already in A'u, A'udhu, A'u, okay? Hamza, Alif is a throat letter, but at the bottom, and Ain is comes from the middle of the throat. So we've got to really differentiate the difference. So it's A'udhu billah, A'udhu billah, dhu. So this is another important point. So the letter Dhal, okay, so we're not praying Za, like Z for zoo, we're praying Dha. Like in English you say the man, the boy, Dhal. And if a letter has a Dhamma, or it has what previously is known as Pesh, if it has a Dhamma or a Pesh, then what you need to do is make your lips circular, okay? So A'udhu, A'udhu, okay? So that's how, because you want to be praying letters and reciting letters in a active voice rather than a passive voice. So you want to ensure that you're putting maximum effort behind it. So A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. So billah. So we've done a'udhu, moving on to billah. Okay. So when we recite the word billah, any letter, the letter ba, any letter that has a kasra, or also known as a zir under it, right? We have to a good way to try and read it correctly, to try and smile and pray at the same time. So you can say ba kasra bi, ba zir bi. Okay. The last thing that we want to say is ba. Again, we don't want to read it with in a passive tone. We want to read it in an active tone. So, A'udhu billah, billah, billah. Okay. Another simple rule, which you probably already know, is before Allah's name, if there is a letter with a kasra, then Allah's name will be empty mouth. So it'll be la. Okay, like lillah, billah. And if there is a letter before Allah's name that has a fatha or a dhamma, also known as a zir or pesh, then you read it as Allah. Okay, so you read it with full mouth. So A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Billahi minash. Every single sound is crystal clear. Billahi minash. Okay. Hi minash shaytanir rajim. When you pray hi minash shay, the sheen comes from the middle of the tongue. So it's when the middle of the tongue connects to the top of the top of the palate of your mouth, the middle of the palate. So من الشيطان الرجيم. Shay, make sure it's a shay, not shaya. A lot of people say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. It's not shaya. شيطان الرجيم. And when praying the ta, just understanding that a ta is a full mouth letter. Okay, so the full mouth letters are خص ضغط قض. Okay, so that is what that means is those are the letters combined together to make up the full mouth letters, which are known as خص ضغط قض. So that's خا صاد ضغط ضاد غين طا and then قاف and a ضا. Okay, and the reason for trying to the reason why we combine all of these full mouth letters together is so that if you were to ask me in 5 to 10 years what are the full mouth letters, I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to remember, all these ambiguous letters, full mouth letters. But if I've learnt these short phrases, then it'll stick in my head. Okay, so أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. One other thing to remember on the ta is that when we're reciting a full mouth letter, i.e. a ta, try not to move your lips, okay? Because if you move your lips, it might sound slightly different. So instead of saying ta, you'll be saying twa, twa, twa. So try not to move your lips when saying the letter ta and only moving your tongue. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Okay, شيطان الرجيم. Nir-rajim. Again, noon kasra ni. We're praying with an active voice. We're not saying shaytan-ner-rajim. It's not ner, it's nir. Okay, so this is a bit of a difficult transition because you've got a letter where you're praying it as ni, but then straight after it you've got a ra. Okay, now that letter ra, if a letter ra has a fatha or a dhamma, also known as a zabar or a pesh, then you'd read that letter full mouth. Okay, so you wouldn't say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. It's not ra, it's ra. And one way I try to tell students in madrasa to try and get the ra out is I tell them, okay, so what does a lion do? When it roars loud, it does ra, and obviously they all, they enjoy that sort of thing. So try to imagine, yourself roaring like a lion. Shaytanir rajim, rajim. Every single sound has to be crystal clear. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Okay, so rajim followed by a jim. As we mentioned before, you pronounce a jim from the middle of the tongue touching the top of the tongue. So you're not saying rajim. Okay, it's not dim as some people like to say, especially when you have a certain dialect. So it's trying to move away from that and praying أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. And what we are not praying is rajam, or because again that is passive. We want to pray in an active tone. Rajim. Imagine yourself smiling when praying jim. Rajim. Okay. Moving on to, so hopefully that explains ta'awud, and moving on to Bismillah. Tasmiyah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So the first part, Bismillah. Okay, it's not Bismillah, it's Bismillah. Bismillah. Rahma. Okay, so there's a small ha, and then there's a full mouth ra. Rahma. Rahmanir Rahim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So when you're praying The word Rahim, again, it's the same principle. The Ra with a Fatha, full mouth. Ha from the middle of the throat. And when you're praying Him, you're praying in an active voice. You're not praying Rahim, you're not praying Rahim, you're praying Rahim. So I know we've taken a bit of time at Ta'awudh Tasmiyah, and believe you me, when I'm teaching just these two sentences in madrasa, it takes me about a week or two just to try and make the children understand. So apologies for taking a bit long. Inshallah, we'll move on to Surah Fatiha in the next minute or two. This is why it's called a Tajweed crash course. So we'll just go again from Ta'awudh and Tasmiyah, and then we'll start on Surah Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So again, just understanding, making sure that every single sound, every single letter is crystal clear. Okay, let's start on Surah Fatiha. Okay, and I feel as though it's really important to go over, especially Surah Fatiha, because it's a surah that we read in the Quran. It's a conversation between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's just so common for for people to make so many mistakes in Surah Fatiha. So inshallah, we'll try to help others improve their recitation. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So just to break it down, Alhamdu, okay? 3 separate sounds. Alhamdu. When you're praying it, do not mix and match all the sounds together. Don't make it sound like 2 sounds. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdu, Lillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay? Another important point is when you're praying right? You don't want to pray Alaham, okay? It's not Alaham, it's Alham, okay? See the sukoon, the little C on top of the lam, okay? That's a connector, that's where we have to meet it. So whenever you see a lam sukoon or a letter with a sukoon, you have to commit to it. Alhamdu, Alhamdu, Alhamdu. And the other point to mention is that if you prayed Alaham, Allah, then what you're doing essentially is applying the qalqala rule, okay? And the qalqala rule is when if you don't already know, the qalqala rule is when you make an echo sound in a word if there's a sukoon on top of it. So the letters of qalqala are qutubu jaddin, so that's the letters together. So qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. So those are the 5 letters of qalqala. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. And an example of qalqala, to try and, if there is a sukoon on top of any of these letters, then you're going to make an echo sound, okay? So, for example, the word yaj'alu, yaj'alu, okay? So it's not yaj'alu, it's yaj'alu. So same here, when you pray alhamdu, you don't pray alhamdu, you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Rabbil Alameen. Now, so we've done Alhamdu, moving on to Lillahi. Okay, again, Lam Kasra Li, Lam with a Zir, Lam with a Kasra. Underneath it, smile, Lillah. Anytime a letter before Allah's name has a Kasra or a Zir, you read it as empty mouth. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil, Rabbil, Ra, full mouth, okay? Rabbil, okay? So it's not Rabbel, it's not bell, we're not ringing a bell. Rabbil, bil, bi, bil, Rabbil Alameen. And we're not saying Bil Alameen, we're saying Bil Alameen, okay? It's very common to pray a letter that has a sukoon in a very passive voice. So Rabbil Alameen. Do it with me from the beginning together, nice and slow. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. One more time. And make sure when you're praying the dal as well, you're making a circular motion with your lips. So it's not do, it's do, do. And you're putting your tongue behind the gums, behind the gum, behind your top two teeth. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Ar-Rahma. Ar-Rahma. Okay, Alif, Hamza, bottom of the throat. Ar. But now we're reading a letter where we don't really have to put much effort in it. A letter like comes out, Alif. Now that's going to join on straight to a letter like Ra. Okay, full mouth Ra because it's got a fatha, or is because it has a fatha. So Ar-Ra, Ar-Ra. Now the ha with the sukoon is also, we're also going to join that. Okay, and we want to make sure that we don't pray Ar-Rah, we don't pray Ar-Rahma. We're going to pray Ar-Rahma, Ar-Rahma, Nir-Rahim, Nir-Rahim, Nir-Rah, Nir-Rah. Okay, notice how there's a shadda or tashdid on top of a ra. If there's a shadda or tashdid, we're going to pray the ra 2 times. So Nir, Ra is the first ra, and then Ra, Nir-Rah, Nir-Rah, Nir-Rahim, Heem, not ham, not heem, heem, from the middle of the throat. If you're not used to praying the throat letters from the throat, so letters like Ain and Ha, it takes a while to get used to, and your throat, I'll be honest with you, your throat might hurt a little, but we've just got to try and persevere through it. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Moving on. Maliki Yawmiddin. Maliki Yawmiddin. Maliki. Okay, meem's got a long fatha, which means that you're going to stretch it slightly. Maliki, liki, it's not maleke, maliki. Okay, leke, that if I said leke, then that would be passive, but I want to pray active. Maliki, I'm putting the effort in. Yo. Okay, so it's not. A lot of mistakes that people make is when they pray yo, they say Maliki Yawmiddin. It's not yo, it's yo. It's got a ya fatha, ya zabar, and it's got a waw sukoon sakina, which makes it yo. Okay, like imagine when you're seeing someone on the street and you're saying yo, yeah, like a yo. So that's how you need to think about it. Maliki Yawmiddin, Middin. Okay, a lot of people say Middin. It's not Middin. There's a shadda on the dal, which means that you pray the dal 2 times. So Middin, you're kind of taking like a slight jump, a slight pause. Middin, and the dal, make sure the dal is very light. Okay, you don't want to say Middin. Try to put your tip of your tongue behind the front 2 teeth on the gums. Okay. Maliki Yawmiddin. Maliki Yawmiddin. Every single letter crystal clear. Okay, every single letter in Arabic alphabet, in Arabic sentences, words, they've all got sounds. They've all got very particular sounds. It's not like English where, you know, when you're casually speaking the language, there's not really much effort that's put in terms of the makhraj, in terms of where the origin of letters. So we've got to make sure every single letter is clear. Ma obviously is when the lips meet. Maliki yaw, kaf is when the back of the tongue touches the back portion of the palate, but just in front of the soft part. So Maliki. If it was a qaf, then the back of the tongue would touch the soft portion behind the palate. So it'd be qaf is qaf, okay, but a kaf is a kaf. So there's a complete difference. Qaf, kaf. So you'd say Maliki Yawmiddin. Moving on. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. So again, when you pray Iyya, Yeah, don't just pray iyyaka na'. It's not iyyaka na'. There's a shadda on the ya, which means you've got to pray the ya 2 times. You've got to commit to it. Iyya, put a bit of emphasis on it. Iyyaka na', as I mentioned before, back of the tongue touching the palate at the back, just in front of the soft spot. Iyyaka na'budu. Okay, so this is an interesting part. So now we've got a noon fatha na, and then we've got ayn sukun. Iyyaka na'budu, na'budu. So when we play the ayn comes from the middle of the throat. Na', okay? We're not saying na'a because it's noon fatha na, okay? And sometimes what can happen is if there's a difficult letter on the sukun, so for example, if it's a ayn sukun or if it's a ra sukun, then we'll just tend to pray that word wrong, the letter that's before it. So for example, the word tar, some people will just pray as tar. They'll say as tar because they're so worried about praying the ra full mouth, but you still got to make sure that the letter before is still clear. Tar, okay? So Iyyaka na'budu, Iyyaka na'budu, and then wa iyyaka nasta'in, wa iyyaka, iyyaka. Okay, again, like we mentioned, commit to the ya shadda. Iyyaka, iyyaka nasta'in, nas, yeah, seen, very clear, not sad, seen. Nasta'in, ta'in. So again, noon fatha na, seen sukun clear, and then you're joining it onto the ta fatha ta. So it's not nasta'in, it's nasta'in. Ain from the middle of the throat. And sometimes it is tricky praying a letter, a difficult letter like a throat letter or a full mouth letter with a kasra underneath it, because you don't want to take out the quality of the letter just because there's a short haraka and just because there's a zir or a kasra underneath it. So again, you're going to pray as wa iyyaka nasta'in, kanasta'in. Again, active voice, not kanasta'in. It's not an. Kanasta'in. So from the beginning, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Just to recap on na'budu, it's not na'budu, it's na'budu, bu-du, circular motion. Anytime a letter has a dhamma or a pesh on it, you'll make a circular motion with your lips. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Pray with me, nice and loud. Don't be shy. I pray nice and slow. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. One more time. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Now the next line is my personal favorite because it takes a lot of time and effort to try and develop and to try and make sure that you're praying it correctly with tajweed. Okay, so it's اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. This is a really common mistake. Whenever someone prays ihdinas, they say ihdinas. Or first of all, the first mistake when you're saying ihdinas, first is it's not it's e. Okay. Secondly, it's a ha. Okay, like we mentioned before, ha is a throat letter. Hamza ha, ayn ha, ghayn kha. Hamza ha, bottom of the throat. Ayn ha, middle of the throat. Ghayn kha, top of the throat. Okay, so if Hamza ha is from the bottom of the throat, there's not really much effort. Imagine it's coming from the top of the chest. Ha, it's like when you're saying to someone, hello, hi, how are you? So the same way, instead of saying from the throat, all you're kind of just doing is just breathing out from your chest. Okay? And again, we're not praying we're not praying because there's no qalqala, there's no echo on a ha. Ha is not an echo letter. It's not from the letters of qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, like qul huwallahu ahad. There's that extra little oomph to it. So again, ihdinas, ihdinas. So make sure that you're not praying ihdinas, it's ihdinas. Okay, now after the dal we've got a noon, so we're going to join that onto sira, ihdinas sira, ihdinas sira. Now sad is like I mentioned before, it's a full mouth letter. Okay, with the full mouth letter you want to try and fill your your mouth with air, and you need to put extra emphasis on it. And like I mentioned before, when you're reciting the letter sad, try not to move your lips. Okay, I remember actually a teacher telling me a couple of years ago when they used to study back in India that even if a line used to appear on their forehead when they prayed in class, then they'd get shouted at, they'd get in trouble, because really, you know, when you're talking about when you listen to the masters, the Qurra, the masters of Tajweed, they make minimal facial expressions. But obviously when we're starting out, especially for like young children and for someone who's not used to Tajweed, then you have to make the facial expressions to try and get used to it. So Ihdina Sirat. Look at the way I'm praying sad. I'm not saying si. I'm not moving my lips because it can sound like si. It's si. Okay? It's slightly moving, but maybe I'll get there one day where I don't move it at all. But we're not supposed to move the sad at all. We're not supposed to move the lips out. Ihdina Sirat. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم المستقيم طا again ta we're praying the ta when the tongue touches the gums behind the front two teeth. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم المستقيم. Is not, and the other mistake to not make is, it's not ihdina as-sirata mustaqim. It's not tala, it's tal mustaqim. Every sound that you make is crystal clear. Ihdina as-sirata mustaqim. You're making an active effort behind every sound. Okay, you're not passively praying. And again, making sure that you're differentiating the difference between a sad and a sin. Okay, si and mus. One is a si, one is a s. Okay, so there's a complete difference. Sirat al-mustaqim. Musta. Okay, ta behind the front two teeth, tongue behind the front two teeth on the gums. Mustaqim. It's not a ta. It's not mustaqim. Mustaqim. Qim. So it's not qam. Qim. A lot of people say اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Qim. It's not qam. Qim. Smile. Qim. Qaf again. The way that you pray the qaf is the back of the tongue touches the soft portion at the back of your mouth to make it a qaf sound. Okay, so اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. One more time, pray with me, nice and slow. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Next part. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Sira, si. Make sure you're praying the sad full mouth with the kasra as well. Si. It's difficult when there's a kasra or a zero underneath a full mouth letter, as I said before, but it just comes with practice. Siratal. Okay, it's not siratal, it's siratal. Okay, like I mentioned before, the full mouth letters khussa, dagatin, qiz. Those are the letters combined. Kha, sad, dad, ghain, ta, qaf, and dha. So صراط الذين طل. Fill your mouth with extra emphasis. And the other thing, you want to make sure that you're not praying طال. It's not طال, it's طال. And the way, like I mentioned before, the way that you prevent yourself from saying tall is by keeping the lips still. When you say the letter ta, just like the letter sad, do not move your lips. Try not to move it. Just move your tongue. So tall, 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 like that. صراط الذين الذين. It's not so. Some people say صراط الذين الذين الذين. Okay. Some people say lazina. It's not zina, because again they're not putting the effort in. The zal, again, like in English when you say the and that. صراط الذين أنعمت أنعمت. Okay, so it's not أنعمت أنعمت. First of all, there's no qalqala on the noon, there's no echo on the noon. It's أنعمت. Whenever there is a sukoon on a noon or a meme, commit to that noon, commit to that meme, and meet it. So, make sure that that letter is heard, is crystal clear. صراط الذين أنعمت. Again, alif from bottom of the throat, ain from the middle of the throat. أنعمت عليهم عليهم. Ain from the middle of the throat. علي, not عليهم. It's not علي. It's lam fatha la lam zabar ya sukun ya sakina, which makes علي علي عليهم him. We'll do it 1-2 more times. Pray along with me, nice and slowly. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So breaking that last line down. غير. Okay, غين is a full mouth letter. Okay, so it's not غين, it's not غين, and it's not gain. It's غين, غين, غين. Okay, it's got the I sound to it. غين. It's not غين. It's not in English. It's not, it's not AY. It's غين, غين, kind of like a OI. غين. غير. Okay, so I don't think we've come across this letter yet. So we've come across a ra when it's got a fatha or a dhamma or a zabar or a pesh on top of it, where we have to pray as full mouth. But if the letter has a kasra underneath it or a zair, then you're going to pray empty mouth. So ril, you pray ever so slightly. Ril. So it's not ril, it's not ril, ril. You're using the tip of your tongue. Okay, if you use any other part of your tongue, it's not going to come out right. It's the tip of your tongue. غير. Okay, and again, it's not غير. It's not غير. Some people say غير. The ya, commit to the ya sukoon. غير. Commit to the sukoon. غير المغضوب. المغضوب. It's not غير المغضوب. غير. Some people say غير المغضوب. Not رلا. It's not رلا. There's no qalqala, there's no echo on the lam. غير المغضوب. Imagine you're taking, mentally, imagine when you're praying slow, you're kind of taking mini pauses every time a sukoon comes. And then over time, you will get used to it. غير المغ. Again, غين full mouth. مغ. You don't want to pray مغ. You want to pray مغ. Mim fatha ma. غين sukoon. مغ. غير المغضوب. Okay, dal. Again, full mouth letter, because there's a waw sukoon after it, and the dal has a dhamma or pesh on top of it. You're going to make your lips circular. مغضوب. B. Okay, we're not saying مغضوب, or it's not مغضوبي. Some people say غير المغضوب. It's not مغضوبي, it's مغضوبي. Okay, غير المغضوب عليهم, just like the verse just before. عليهم. Ain, clear, crystal clear from the throat. عليهم. غير المغضوب عليهم. And then the last part, walad, walad, walad. You're kind of jumping. Walad, and whenever there's a big mud, just to understand how long you stretch it, just count 5 fingers on. Just count 5 fingers. Walad, there's always a slight just because there's a shadda on the lam, and if there's a shadda on the lam, whenever there's a shadda on the letter, you pray the letter twice. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, lean, not lan, lean. So the way that you pronounce the mukhraj of a dad, the origin of a dad, is that the kind of the back of your tongue touches the upper teeth, the teeth at the back, the upper teeth. So وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. So just that last part again. And pray along with me, because it's when you're praying tajweed and when you're learning how to recite the Quran correctly, you have to pray nice and loud. In madrasa, the children, I always tell them to constantly pray nice and loud, because obviously I can't hear you right now, but if anyone does want to actually send me a voice note or anything, then I'm more than happy. Or if you want to jump on after this, if you're feeling brave, then you can also jump on the live. So just the last part. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين عليهم ولا علي. Again, like I mentioned, every single sound has to be clear. We'll just go over it one more time from the beginning to the end. Okay? Surah Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Pray along with me. الرحمن الرحيم. Full mouth ra, ha from the throat. You bring an active voice. Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Yo. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'. Again, commit to the iya. There's a shadda, ya 2 times. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. إياك na, and then from the throat. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Again, this is a very common mistake. Don't say إه, and don't say and don't say إح. Okay, and don't say إح. No qalqala, no echo on the ha sukun. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. One more time. غير full mouth, غين, and then ra, empty mouth. غير المغضوب, مغضوب, 3 separate sounds, not مغضوب. مغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. Jazakallah for listening. Hopefully that was beneficial, inshallah, and from tomorrow we will be starting the last 10 surahs, inshallah. So Surah Fil, inshallah. If there is anyone brave that wants to jump on and wants to take part in this session, I'll give you about 30 seconds to comment if there is anyone. I've asked many people before the session, and I don't think anyone wanted to join because maybe they felt that their Izzat was on the line. But it's all right. This is just a learning opportunity. So, like I mentioned, again, if you want me to listen to your level of recitation, just send me a voice note, inshallah. And if there's any females listening, if you want to send a voice note, then I will make sure that a female tutor will listen to the voice recording, inshallah, and provide any feedback. Okay, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.